right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me today. I unfortunately am not Nasha Fitter. Nasha is also a mom to a child with a rare disorder who unfortunately had an emergency this week. So I'm going to try to do my best to give her justice today, but of course, continue to hope and believe that the work of this community will mean fewer emergencies for children with rare disorders and their families. But my name is Ellie, and I am coming to you from Invitae. And at Invitae, I represent the Citizen platform, so I'm here to you as a resource today to share a little bit more about what we do and, of course, answer any questions that you may have. So this is a statistic that probably many are quite familiar with, but despite incredible progress in translational research for rare disorders, the vast majority of these do not have an approved targeted therapy that is not simply managing the symptoms, but addressing the underlying cause. One of the things that we think a lot about on the citizen side is clinical trial readiness. So how can we generate the observational or natural history data to ensure that we can demonstrate efficacy of an investigational drug or a new candidate therapy? That said, conducting observational studies in rare disorders are very challenging. So as we've heard described today already and will likely continue to hear, rare disorders can have significant phenotypic variability, and this is typically spread across distributed populations, and so it can be challenging to bring a larger or a smaller community together to a handful of sites when we know that those individuals are spread across the world. They can be very expensive to stand up and have prolonged timelines. There's a significant participation burden for families, which can result in dropout or attrition. Fragmentation of medical care in general can lead to incomplete data. And then traditionally, thankfully this is improving, but in many studies that were conducted historically, there has been a lack of engagement with the patient community, which is really critical to ensure that we're measuring what's important to families. So I wanted to just highlight something that I think is really important for the advocacy communities in particular, which is the 21st Century's Cures Act. This was signed into law in December of 2016 with a couple of purposes. One is to accelerate medical product development. Two is to incorporate patient perspectives into drug development. And then the third was really to modernize clinical trial design. And one of the indirect goals, I think, of this is that it really positions advocacy groups to drive early investments in clinical data collection, even in the absence of significant funding. And this is really where we hope to come in. So Citizen is a complementary, patient-centric, data-powered platform that we hope to make available to as many patients as possible. And the patient centricity is really critical to our platform and how we tend to think of ourselves and distinguish ourselves. So you can see in this image, really everything is instigated by the patient. So you can join the Citizen platform, and then we leverage your HIPAA right of access, which gives you rights and access to your medical information to collect medical records, genetic testing information, imaging studies, EEG tracings, and we store those in a platform that you have access to. For all of the medical record data, we have developed technology that transforms that into a research-ready data set, and then with your consent, that information can be shared in a de-identified manner with whomever you want. So it could be a family member or a caregiver who is assisting in care of the patient. It could be an advocacy group that is, maintaining a database of individuals in their network. It could be an academic researcher who is studying SLC6A1 and wants to ingest or incorporate some of the Citizen data as well. And then we also license our data to biopharma in order to help support their own clinical programs. So just to give a quick overview of what this process looks like, we start with our longitudinal data collection. So one of our co-founders, Devin McGraw, was the deputy head of the Office for Civil Rights under the Obama administration, and she really wanted to ensure that the laws that she helped write around HIPAA and patient access and patient ownership of their data could actually be translated into reality. So much of our early business was built around this concept of ensuring that patients have access to data and that we could actually collect all of that data. So to date, we have very high collection rates. And we've also published a scorecard online, which you can go and see, where we kind of name and shame institutions that do a good or a bad job at sharing data. And this has actually been instrumental in ensuring that institutions do a better job when they were perhaps not doing so good a job before. Part two is that we really consider patients as owners. So as soon as we collect any information or extract any information, that goes into a portal that you have access to and that you can also share to. So if you wanted to, contribute your data to another study, if you wanted to share your data with a physician for a second opinion, or if you're seeing a new specialist, that can all be managed through this patient portal. I also want to call out that at any point you can download your records and tell us that you're no longer interested in participating. So you are the owner of your data and you have control over how it is used and how it is maintained. And then, where we've really focused over the past couple of years is developing technology to take all of the, variable stuff that exists in the medical records, whether it's unstructured narrative notes or structured data, similar symptoms described by many different clinicians over different institutions. How can we take all of that really rich, useful information, but turn it into something that can actually be used? So we have developed technology that helps support that. We have rigorous quality controls in place. And our goal is really to make sure that whoever is going to be receiving the data for research can actually start using it right away without having to do any data cleaning or validation. So one thing that we wanted to share with you today was a proof of concept that we've been really excited about. It's something we've been working towards, and we hope this is really just the first of many of these types of collaborations. And so I wanted to start out by talking about our timeline. So Citizen originally started in the oncology space. Our founder had a sister who died very young of metastatic breast cancer. But Nasha and I really felt like this platform was just designed for the rare disease community. It helps address many of the challenges that are associated with traditional studies, and we thought this could be a really nice complementary product. So in 2020, after several months, we managed to convince Citizen that it was, rare disease is where it's at, this is where we got to go. And so we started with a pilot in 4 different conditions. With that early pilot, we were also able to bring on an early adapter with Praxis Precision Medicines, and they were developing ASO therapies for SCN2A and SCN8A, which are 2 other genetic developmental epileptic encephalopathies. In May of 2021, so only 5 months later, we were able to deliver data for their first cohorts, and then we continued to expand those cohorts throughout the rest of the year, totaling almost 50 patients for SCN2A and almost 80 for 8A, and we continue to enroll in those cohorts today. About 6 months later, Praxis was able to submit an IND filing, or an IND to FDA, and the only clinical data that they used was generated through the Citizen platform. While the IND was being reviewed, Praxis felt strong enough in the data that they were generating that they went on to sign a new contract with us for 900 additional rare disease patients, which is very exciting for us. And then, thankfully in August of 2022, the FDA approved their IND package, and they are now planning to launch their phase 1/2 trial in SCN2A in the new year. So we were really excited because one of our main goals was to move the needle faster. So how can we take these investigational therapies, really support the clinical trial readiness piece so that we can get drugs to patients faster. And we felt that this was a really successful story in demonstrating that. 5 minutes, okay. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the ways in which Praxis is using the data, and this is really around optimizing their clinical trial design. So we want to maximize the likelihood that their clinical trial is successful so that their therapies can be approved for patients. So this includes things like thinking about endpoints, which we've heard a lot talked about today. How do we choose the right endpoints that represent the community and also measure things that are important to the community? How can we make sure that the number of patients included in the trial are large enough so that recruitment is not challenging? They also used our data to help refine an EEG biomarker that they'll be using in their trials. And then one of the most important things they did was actually use the citizen data to communicate the patient experience to FDA. When we heard from Praxis, that was one of their most powerful interactions with FDA, where they were able to say, look at what this means for my child. There is a high unmet need for rare disorders, and we need to do better, and we need to move faster, and that apparently really resonated. So I think I'll show maybe just one example of data and then continue to move on. But one of the key points that they were able to demonstrate is that seizures in SCN2A persist. So if you look to the existing literature within SCN2A, it is believed that seizure frequency decreases over time and seizures become better controlled. And so if seizures are going to be the primary thing that you measure in a clinical trial, you want to make sure that that actually continues to be an active problem for participants. And so with citizen data, we measure seizure frequency over time. And so they were able to demonstrate that seizures continue and are countable within the age ranges that they were expecting to recruit. They also looked at a number of other clinical phenotypes to help inform other exploratory or secondary endpoints. And then they also were able to pull some data, as I mentioned, to demonstrate the burden of disease. So in this example, I think is really powerful. With our data, they showed that these individuals spent 69 days of their first year of life in the hospital. So, this was really just supporting the preclinical or IND-enabling phase, but we do have plans to continue to support Praxis throughout the lifespan of their two molecules, so both in the clinical space and in the post-market space. So this is an ongoing partnership. And lastly, I hope to see all of you at Nudi's Honky Tonk. We did have to get Invitae legal to clear the name of that establishment. But this is where we're going to be launching our Rare Patient Network, where we are opening access to the Citizen platform at no charge to patients for anyone who has had at least one seizure before the age of 18 and has developmental delays in any domain. So this is a huge milestone for us, and we're very grateful for the support of this community. And please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be around today and happy to answer them.